Next, we're going to move to our producer panel, and this is HR strategies used by successful dairy producers. Remember that nothing happens without people, so please join me in welcoming our host for this afternoon, Dr. Chris Church. Chris is a DVM plus an MBA candidate. He's with Trouw Nutrition. Chris, if you'd like to come to the front, plus our guests, Cox Wensing of Hone Horse Farms Limited in Innerkip, Ontario, Kathy Smedley, Islandike Farms of Springfield, Ontario, Dylan Stewardson Dairy of Thetford, and Josh Ireland of Albadon Farms, Teeswater. And if you want to come to the front and get set up, and we'll get ready to go here with our SureGain panel discussion. Thank you very much, Hopcast guys.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. You mind if we...
Excuse me, it's afternoon.
Good afternoon, everybody.
You're welcome.
And there's our slides. Shout out to Trouw Nutrition for sponsoring this panel. I am the moderator / guy to yell at if we go over time. How many people here absolutely love HR?
Nobody.
HR is not exactly a sexy topic, so this is a really good panel of people. I hope you get a lot out of it, and you'll actually find, as they talk about this, that HR can actually be fun. So we'll start off by introducing everybody. You guys can see that. Kathy, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hi, I'm Kathy Smedley, and I work for the Islandike Dairy Farm in Springfield. What else do you want me to say?
Can you tell us how many cows you're milking?
Yes, we have 1,000 cows in a brand new 50-stall rotary parlor, and we hire local help. Joyous.
Okay, and how many employees do you have?
Too many. We have 15 with 2 of us on mat leave.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say about your farm?
No, thank you.
2 different locations.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. We can go there. So we just bought a second location. It's in Salford. I can't remember. There's no cows there. We're doing renovations, so don't ask me specifics.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Cox Wensing, would you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, I think my cord got tangled there. My name is Cox Wensink. I'm from Hone Horse Farms in Innerkip, just about half an hour from here. We milk 500 cows with 10 Lely robots in 2 locations, just around the corner from each other. And since about 4 years, we now hire a team mainly from Guatemala, and we also have a Canadian on board. Yes, so I'll be talking about that.
And Dylan Stewardson, would you please introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, I'm Dylan Stewardson, partner at Stewardson Dairy. Currently we're milking 350 cows on 2 locations, starting up a 3rd location soon. We have 14 employees, 6 full-time, and range anywhere from tenure of 4 to 18 months for our staff. We also have a crop operation, some broilers, and we operate a veterinary clinic as well. My wife is a veterinarian and has owned the practice since 2017. We have 25 people on staff there as well.
Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Josh, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Josh Ireland, partner and herdsman at Albadon Farms. We have 2 locations. We're milking 300 total. Is that it?
Sure. Sounds good. How many employees?
Around a dozen, give or take.
Okay.
All local help.
All local help. Okay, so mix of foreign workers and local help, which we'll talk about a little bit. Now, if anybody has questions, we're going to have time at the end for questions. Hopefully we'll get to it during the discussion. So please, or if you want to shout it out, this is pretty informal. So if you've got a question, please feel free to ask. Our next set of questions is who's in charge of HR on your farm? So we're actually going to go the opposite direction. We're going to start with Josh, and then we'll work back.
So my wife Marianne and I share those duties. We do a lot of most of the interviews together. Basically, there's no real divide our lines in the roles with that, but we definitely share them both. I think we kind of complement each other with a few different approaches and mindsets, I guess, with it. I really like not being the only one meeting with employees and being able to kind of bounce things back and forth. So yes, the two of us.
And just out of curiosity, how much of your time would you figure you'd spend in a given week on HR, employee management stuff?
I should have. Well, maybe it's in here, but I think we figured about half an hour to an hour a week.
Dylan, same question.
Yeah, so people responsible for HR on the farm is primarily myself and my partners, who are my parents, Jeff and Brenda. I am kind of the face person who deals with anything day to day, any discussion about protocol, hiring, any personal improvement plans, anything like that we do with our staff. And my mom, Brenda, primarily works behind the scenes doing administering our benefits plans, doing things, payroll. I do the scheduling. My parents are starting to move out of that position, and we've attempted to train one long tenured employee who's been there for 7 years to kind of sit down and do interviews with myself, as well as do some of the screening on our online platforms for hiring.
Okay, awesome.
And time spent on HR weekly. Some weeks seems like it's 100 hours. Some weeks it seems like no time at all.
Okay, thank you. Cokes?
So the HR on our farm, I'm the one that does it. I do rely on advisors when there's a tricky situation or a situation I haven't run in before. So I've worked with an advisor now for almost 6 years that has also trained me and helps me out. But mainly all the day-to-day stuff like the scheduling, the payroll, conflict resolution, all those fun things I do. And I feel that in the last couple of years, that does take up most of my time now. So I think with us working with foreign workers, there's another added element there to HR, just with all the paperwork to get them there and dealing with inspections and such. So I think I spend usually about 50 to 75% of my time on HR or paperwork tasks. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Kathy?
So it's me. I am HR, and it's great. Normally, Tino and we work to hire the people, and then Paul fires them. It's a great system. And I feel like I myself am a vet tech, so I only have little training. I did not go to school for this. I don't know why I got stuck doing this. I went to school for animals because they don't talk back like people. So I spend most of my time making protocols, dealing with problems, and a bunch of people when I have 4 children of my own that do just the exact same. It's lovely. It's a great time. What am I supposed to say else?
That's perfect. So then that leads into the very next question is, like, did you actually wake up as an 18-year-old and say, boy, I want to do HR when I grow up? Did any of you do that?
No one.
No.
You're welcome.
So on the panel, can you guys just quickly say, what was your background? Like, what did you train originally? So, like, I was a vet, and I'm standing up here talking.
I was your second hand, I suppose.
Vet tech.
Mm-hmm.
I was a mechanical engineer and management consultant.
I apprenticed to be a dairy farmer from the time that I could walk.
I got nothing.
But I like how you laugh because in hindsight, I can laugh about it too, because mechanical engineers are the opposite of HR. We are not trained
right?
on
That text
HR.
too.
So I never thought my career would end up being mainly HR. But it's not all bad. No, there's a lot of good things to it if you know how to do it right. Yeah.
Such as going home at the end of the day.
Right. And I would say that, like, for myself, I'm a numbers person. I love charts and graphs on how your production is doing, how your finances are doing. I've realized that I think HR is going to kill more farms than production is. not being able to hire the right people, train them, keep them. We can't do everything ourselves, so that's why this is important to try to figure out. So then the next question is how did you learn HR? So Kathy, how, if you didn't go to school for it, how did you just learn it?
Because Paul and Tino don't have time to deal with that. So then I got stuck doing it.
Just a comment, Chris, that as veterinarians or vet techs, often we can solve almost any problem with the truck and a trailer or a bullet, but they don't allow you to use any of those in HR. So it's really OJT, on-the-job training.
So that on-the-job training, would you say that's been pretty practical for you?
Yeah, on-farm training, when something happened, I better buck up and I better know to cover my butt, because that's when shit hits the fan.
Cokes, how have you learned HR?
I think similar, out of necessity. I quickly learned that the way I started managing was not effective. So you learn to adapt and change. And I think like most people, you eventually with time, it's not if, but when you run into a tricky employee situation that is beyond your own skill set. And at that time, we actually consulted an HR agency because I did realize I didn't have the skills and we needed some outside advice. And so you get a very steep learning curve where you realize that if you want to run the farm right, you have to learn how to do it right. You can't stick your head in the sand. So I essentially got a private course on HR and still work with this person. She keeps teaching me. I think there's always new stuff to learn. So it's not something you just learn and move on. I feel it's a continuous process that you keep learning.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. Definitely, trial and error as much as possible. And to Cokes's point, until you run into that situation where you realize that you're in over your head, you have to have some other resource or some other backup plan. And usually you don't make the same mistake twice. You make it 5 or 6 times. So, yeah.
That's very true.
Yeah, I would echo some of those things too. Just learn on the fly. Certainly growing up around the supper table, we didn't have HR discussions, right? Whether it's staff or even family members, right? Proper communication and whatnot. You're talking about crop rotation and buying a farm, or those kind of a little more glamorous items. And yeah, you don't wake up one morning with 5 employees or 10 employees or whatever. You grow into it. So as you're growing, you're learning on the fly. We have a lot of discussions, probably now where we're at with our farm, Mary Ann, myself, and my father. If there's a situation that comes up, we'll bounce ideas around before we deal with it, because maybe what I think is different from what Mary Ann thinks or my father thinks, and maybe somebody else's perspective is better than my own. So before we jump into it and make a mistake, we'll throw ideas around and figure out what we think is the right approach. And it may very well not be the right approach, but you discuss it.
Yeah, and that's why I put that picture of that cow's udder on there, because I think that's the kind of stuff that gets talked about around the dinner table, and then suddenly there's 10 employees and you got to figure that part out. And so if you guys, in a lot of other areas of farming, you will phone a friend. You'll have a mentor, you'll have a buddy that you can pitch ideas off of. Is it the same with HR? Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Yeah. And so is this something compared to other areas like Cokes, you had mentioned having an advisor that you call in this area. Would you rely more on professional help for this compared to other things, or is it kind of all the same?
It's similar. Yeah, I would put them in the same category as a nutritionist, a vet, a breeder, HR advisor too. It's just as important. I think there are some employee questions that I'll run to colleagues or friends too, like just to bounce ideas off of them. But there's some situations that are just a bit more tricky, a little bit unusual, where I find I really rely on our advisor, just somebody with much more experience that also knows the legal system in that aspect better, that can advise on how to deal with tricky situations. But more mainstream situations that others would run into, those are usually like chats with friends. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris.
Go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
I would definitely say a lot of the same things as that. I can actually look at a couple people in the room here today who I've talked to about different HR things and other dairy farmers, but professional help it's all different kinds.
Yeah, and I would agree with all that. One other aspect that I found, not that I've done a lot of it, but it is handy to talk to farm workers on other farms to get their perspective, because that's totally different than managers and owners will have.
Okay. Next section. So how do you find new employees? And maybe we'll start, Josh, and with you and work back across.
So in the past, I mean, way back would be newspapers, I guess, and then to Facebook, and still a little bit to Facebook, but we've had really good luck with Indeed. For full-timers, part-timers, students, that's probably as much word of mouth as anything. But yeah, those would be our avenues.
Dylan?
Yeah, so it seems like our, because we're milking 3 times a day, our evening shift is one of the shifts that seems to be kind of a revolving door, for lack of a better word. And Indeed has been helpful with that. But word of mouth for our full-time staff. We've had 3 mat leaves here in the last year at the farm, and they all brought their own replacements.
That's awesome. And Cokes, your hiring process is a little bit different.
Yeah, it changed a lot in the last few years. So we were initially the same, where we were hiring through Facebook, Indeed, Kijiji, word of mouth, but that wasn't very successful for us. So we moved to foreign employees 4 years ago. So we now work with an agency in Guatemala. But truth be told, after we got our first guy from Guatemala, he was so good that he actually asked if his brothers could come. And then they asked if their brother-in-laws could come. So we haven't had to recruit. So when a position does open up, the guys already have a name in mind, and they know what we're looking for. So we're lucky in that case that I just have to do the paperwork, but I'm not searching anymore.
So with that, can you tell us a little bit about language issues, please?
So the Guatemalan team does speak Spanish, as you would imagine. But they do not have schooling in English, so there is no English knowledge. And so I quickly figured out that the best thing would be for me to learn Spanish. So I have some luck with that, though, because my husband is Spanish speaking. And so my in-laws speak Spanish, so I did have a bit of motivation there. I didn't learn Spanish before, so it's always a joke in the family. I only learned it when I got employees that speak Spanish. But I'm the type of person that learns out of necessity. And so I can't run the farm without speaking Spanish. So I do have a basic Spanish knowledge now. I took a Spanish dairy course, and we, also Google Translate helps also in a pinch. So yeah, we get by. And our Canadian on the team does not speak Spanish, but that's not necessary. So our Spanish team has learned some keywords in English. He knows some words in Spanish, so there's a basic communication there and a lot of Google Translate. But also with all the protocols, it's very predictable what is needed. But from my side, when it comes back to HR, I thought initially that I could ask the team to learn English, but that's... I think also if you look to yourself, if you got a job and you suddenly found out you had to learn, for instance, French, that's not very realistic, right? So the better thing was for me to learn Spanish so that they're comfortable and we just get things done.
Thank you. Kathy, how do you guys find employees?
So we normally did Kijiji for some local help. We do Indeed, which we are the most focused on. That's where we get our employees from. We also do word of mouth, and we do some friends of current employees, whether they work out or not, but we definitely do give a try, and we like that people come with no experience, because then we train them the way we like. That's it.
Okay, thank you. When you actually have the warm body in front of you, what do you look for in a candidate? Like, what's really important to you when you're trying to get a sense of the person? Is it skills? Is it... You tell me, please.
I, in theory, look into their soul. Can we hold a good conversation Are we going to have a good sense of humor? Can we converse? Because if it's me putting up with all the complaints, I need to make sure that we're going to get along together. And if Paul don't like you, as he would say. So really, it's just Tino and I. Tino just kind of, if he can put up with them, if they can listen to Tino, if you can communicate with Tino. Mind you, he's of Dutch background, so he has a very different way of doing things than I would be doing things. So as long as we can get along together, we have a good sense of humor, we can communicate. It doesn't matter to me where you come from, what you're doing. If we can do something together, let's do it.
Okay, awesome. Cokes, what do you look for when you're through the agency? They're sort of sending you people. Are you interviewing them when they come?
Yeah, so that's an interesting process. Initially, that seemed really awkward to me because you just get sent a list of names and nothing else. List of names and a very vague background. But you do trust the agency to find you people that are suitable, but it's really hit and miss. We have a fairly good relationship with the agency now, and thanks to that first guy that came with us, now when a position does open up, they already know who fits in the team and who doesn't. And I think they've seen historically who came and left the farm. So they also know that we're quite serious, that when we hire people, we place a lot of responsibility and trust in them, and we hope that that's returned. And when it's not, they know what happens. But essentially with employees, because of that, I also realized that asking for people with a dairy background or machinery background or specific knowledge is not realistic. But also, that doesn't really matter to me. The best employees that we've had came with zero dairy farming background. It's really the attitude and the mindset that comes with it and why they're doing what they're doing. If their heart is in the right place, if they have the intelligence to learn, and if they have the right character to work in a team and handle the responsibility that I can give them, then they stay with us.
Awesome. And so did you have to interview, are there multiple agencies that you had the option of going with?
Initially, I did. I actually interviewed with Mexico and Guatemala. Just for the different ways that both agencies work, I ended up staying with the Guatemalan agency. That's just because it fit really well with how our farm works. But essentially, I'm no longer interviewing. So the interview process is when I email the requirements. Again, that doesn't happen. The team now finds me people, but they know what it is. And if that person doesn't fit, which luckily hasn't happened, they know that person will get returned, right? So the way the agency works in in Guatemala is a little bit different. And this is something that the team told me. I didn't know this before, but there's actually a 2 to 3 year wait list when you sign up as a Guatemalan worker with that agency before you get assigned a farm to work with. So there's a lot of competition. But how this agency does it is that when you apply to that agency, you get a job, you commit to doing a good job. If for some reason you don't, and you get returned, and because you did not do a good job, you get blacklisted from the agency as well as your family. So the people who sign up for it are very committed. But also as an employer, it's the same, right? If I don't treat them right, I get blacklisted. So from both sides, there's a very strong commitment that when you sign up with that agency, you are a good employer and you're a good employee. You have good intentions to work together. And I like that. That works with our farm's goals. So we've had good luck with that.
HR step out. Dylan, when you were interviewing, what do you look for in an employee?
Simply, if you want to make it real simple, just a good attitude. Somebody who cares, somebody who wants to do a good job. I don't care what kind of skills you have. I guess, you can't have like a bad back or something like that either, depending on the job, or bad knees. But attitude, far and above anything else.
And Josh, same question, please.
So beforehand, we'll do a bit of kind of pre-screening. Look for the busy resumes. Obviously, go to the bottom of the heap or just get thrown out. No, we don't look for previous farm experience, but we'll look for jobs that they're used to being on their feet and being busy, and that they were at for more than 2 months. And we'll also, if in a roundabout way, if we can find out people that know them, then we'll touch base with them. If we don't know them, we'll touch base with them and see, what kind of people they are. During the interview process, it's really just how does the conversation go? How do we think they're going to fit into our team and our culture? If we're worried that maybe they aren't going to be a fit, then they're going to go to the bottom of the list, and even a bit of maybe not necessarily age. It seems to end up being that way, a similar age to our team, but certainly how we think they will fit in.
Next question. So you've got your new employee hired. What's your process to try to get them onboarded? Is it really, and we'll start with you, Josh, is it really rigorous? Is it paperwork driven? Is it hands-on driven? Can you just tell us a little bit about your process?
So we're currently probably not doing enough or as much as we should. We are working towards stepping up our game that way. We haven't had a lot of problems, so I guess that's as much why we haven't. But we shouldn't wait for there to be a problem to put those plans in place.
Don't wait for that, let me tell you from experience.
And so to be specific, you're not talking about, you train employees, you just don't do a lot of necessary paperwork or SOPs or written kind of stuff.
Yeah, SOPs are minimal, but there is some, the paperwork aspect, signing off and whatnot. Certainly onboarding and, just the walkthroughs and showing the dangers and whatnot, that we do a bunch of that. Get in with the cows before they're just thrown onto a shift. Our staff does the majority of the training. We just find that works well for us. But we do try to do some of high level stuff beforehand.
Okay, awesome. Dylan, are you a very formal setup when you start people?
I think we are fairly formal. I would like to be maybe that comes from more my mom's side and her organization and how she likes to keep everything in order. I'm maybe a little more casual. But we do have an employee handbook that we give to our new hires. We'll do training shifts with other employees, but before they're kind of left to go on their own, I will do a training shift with them just to make sure that all the information has been passed along correctly. It's also a really good opportunity to say, oh, I was trained a certain way by this person. And I'm like, perfect. Now I can go right to that person and be like, hey, the protocol is. And it's a kind of a good review and a good monitoring of procedural drift and that kind of stuff too. But yeah, definitely don't turn people loose until they're comfortable with handling cows, calves, equipment, whatever it might be. And always lower my expectations for what the timeline would be for someone to be trained and ready to go.
Awesome, thank you. Cokes, can you tell us a little bit about your startup protocol?
Yeah, so ours is similar. The only thing is that I usually don't know exactly what skill set people come with. So my first part is in just the informal meeting, just talking to them and learning what kind of background they have, what their interests are. And then we usually do an informal introduction to the team, and the rest is formal. So we did have our HR advisor help us set this up. Because we hire foreign workers, we do deal with regular inspections, and they do like to see a paper trail of formalized health and safety and training that is signed off. So as not fun as that is, it's a reality, so we deal with it. The rest of the farm training is formal. I do have SOPs for every position, and I've very clearly outlined what every position's role is and the tasks and the timeline that it needs to be completed in. So usually, in the past, when we didn't have as many workers, right now we have 8, I would train the employee myself until they could do the job independently and just very well according to our standards. Now, just because I simply don't have the time to watch 8 employees do their job at the same time, I do have trusted workers that I know that are trained according to our protocols that I'll then assign the training duties. And then what I usually do is after a week or 2, I'll do the shift with them and just see if the protocol is still how I'd like it to be. And then I usually tweak, adjust, and then we give it another week or so. I jump in again. So I just do checks.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
And Kathy?
So it depends on your role. If you're a machinery friend, Tina will train you. If you're a cow friend, Paul will train you. And if you're everything else, I will train you. And if you come with no experience, then I will watch you like a hawk. And if Paul complains, he will send me to you to correct it. And other than that, I'm more forgiving than the other two because they have no time. So if you can get it and you're getting it, then I try and calm the other two down that, yes, we're going in the right direction, we're going in the positive direction. But for milking, it's myself. And then if you come with experience, then I let the other guy that's been there for 5 years, I let him deal with it because I'm in the office doing paperwork because that's what I like to do. I'm just kidding. That's my story.
So that paperwork part, so by trial and error, you didn't just decide to start doing more paperwork. Through trial and error, you've learned that having things written down and documented helps. So
that's a little bit of the vet tech in me because when you're in clinic, you're signing off on everything, you're labeling everything, you're initialing everything to make sure that if there's an issue, if there's something that's gone wrong with the lab work, you know exactly who to go to, who to find out where you've gone wrong. So I've just carried that over into this, and I think they just kind of got spoiled and they just let me do it, and I didn't want to.
awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is always a tough one. So once you've got employees on staff, how do you look over their shoulder, as it were, or evaluate or understand that they're following the protocol? And we'll switch it up. Josh, I'm gonna, just so you don't go to sleep down there, we'll start with you on this one. Please.
Sorry. So that I was looking through for that question to remember what I said.
Yeah, so no problem. If you've got your employee on board and you're trying to, they're a year in and you want to get a sense on if they're still following the training and how they're doing, basically. If you're not working with them every day, how do you get a sense for how they're doing?
I mean, watching would be ideal. Are you gonna walk by or come through at the right time to see something? Maybe not. So talking to all of the team and just listening is, that's gonna be our biggest one there. Our whole staff, or say our leaders, have basically as high as expectations as we do. So if something's not being done right, they're going to let us know. That's going to be our biggest one.
Okay, thank you. Dylan, how do you evaluate your staff?
I would say it's similar to Josh's, that there's most of our team and most of the people genuinely care a lot about the end results and understand the why, not just do this a certain way. They understand the why behind why we attach our milkers in a certain amount of time, why we rake the stalls a certain way. And there's enough people on staff that if someone is not kind of maintaining the standards that is generally everyone knows and expects, then it's peer pressure as much as it is from the top monitoring those people.
Okay, awesome. Cokes?
Yeah, so I have a bit of a combination because it's just myself, and there's no human way possible to monitor everybody. So I just have a couple fail-safes in place. So what I do every morning is I do a walk around with every team member real quick, just talking to them for a few minutes. And usually when there's something going sideways that pops up, then they know that's their moment. In other ways, is like I mentioned before, is I do occasionally pop in during shifts randomly and just see how things are going. And that's very quickly see when things have gone sideways there as well. And the other thing I have is that we monitor KPIs, key performance indicators, pretty closely. And that's also a good way of telling when you're not there. whether things are still going the way you want them to go. So every position has data that's being taken, whether it's feeder, where there's the TMR tracker that monitors their accuracy, and we have the robots with all their data. We have dairy comp, and also just several other sources where I get data points from. So you have different ways of seeing if people are on track that make up for not being able to physically see them all the time.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Can I just add, you guys sound like you've got it all together.
No, we don't. I have it there because we don't.
Just
If we had it all together, I would not need to monitor that much.
just a warning, or not a warning. When I asked each of these individuals to come up and be on the panel, they all said, "Hey, we don't have all this together. Why would you want us to be on a panel?"
I guess that's why. So everyone, we all feel like we're the same right now.
Yeah, full disclosure, just fake it till you make it.
I do a good job. Thank you. Do you want me to answer the same question?
Yes, please. Sorry.
I'll try and make it really good for you guys. What was the question first?
How do you monitor if people are doing their job?
I monitor if Paul starts bitching at me that this person's not doing their job correctly, and or if Tino does the same thing. And then I know I got a problem, and then I got to go fix before they lose their hat. So I don't know where I am at any point, okay, because I'm on mat leave. So I'm over here, I'm over there, and I'm over here, and I've got my own stuff to worry about. I'm trying to watch my filter so that I'm not a farmer's mouth, okay, because that's me on a good day. You're welcome. So yes, I have to listen to Paul the whole time. You know what? It doesn't matter which way the wind goes. He's constantly bitching. Let's just be real. Am I right, Ilsa? Yes. Okay, we got part of my team here today kind of judging me. And I quite like it because I don't know where Tino is. He's here somewhere. Anywho, so if there's something going on, I will just kind of walk around and I will make sure that something is done properly. And if it's not, then Tino and I will talk, or Paul and I will talk. And, well, if there's a problem, I'll let you know because I don't have time to sugarcoat it for you. Nobody does. So that's welcome to our farm
Okay.
of chaos.
So for everybody in the crowd, we kind of all like the idea of growing, right? You want to get bigger. Maybe it'll make your life easier to milk more cows. You'll be more productive. The panel here, if you didn't notice it in the introduction, rotary parlor, AMS, and standard parlors. When people think of AMS, you think of, geez, if I go to robots, I won't have to worry about employees. But what would you say to that, Cokes?
Not true, no. I think mainly it just changes the way you manage a farm, right? It does not eliminate robots. It does not eliminate people. You just assign different tasks to people. So instead of having them attach milkers to cows, we have them do robot maintenance and maybe focus on stall maintenance and more preventative health. So there's definitely, our farm will always have people on it. Yeah.
And then I think everyone, to summarize, each of you said you don't do it all yourself. You rely on your team. So it's not just about hiring a worker and telling them to go work. You hire one worker and then you train them to become a member of your farm, and then they help you build a culture and bring on the next people. Is that fair?
Eventually, you all become family because you have to put up with everybody all day long, every day, and you don't get a break unless you say you're going on vacation. Deal with it.
Now, another thing we didn't bring up, in the U.S., a couple of years ago, there was a large dairy farm in that ships to the Fairlife Milk Company that a undercover animal rights person took a video of how they were handling their animals, and that went viral. Coca-Cola is now the main owner of Fairlife Milk. So they instituted a policy that all the farms in the U.S. that ship to their network have cameras on the farm, and every time an employee touches a cow, someone in the office has to watch the videos and keep a log and make a note of why that person touched the cow to make sure that it was a good touch or a bad touch. So I don't see that coming to Canada anytime soon, but we never know. So for the panel, cameras, is that something you guys have started to use on the farm at all? If so, why? And we'll start with you, Josh, please.
We do have a few cameras. It's more just for surveillance for somebody that shouldn't be on the farm. We've never, I guess, we've briefly talked of adding them around the barn, but that's as far as it's went. Yeah, that's as far as it's went. I guess kind of, this is a little off, but it has to do with the same thing. I don't know what it'd be, maybe 10 years ago, we would get as many people as we could to go to some of those meetings that were cattle handling courses. I think there was cow signals, there was another one too. And then we started doing those on farm. But it was great, but we had to organize everybody together and bring somebody in. And so I said to our vet that I'd really like her to put a bit of a program together that was part of the onboarding process. So everybody does do that cattle handling course. So I guess the hope would be that they understand it from their training and from talking to us, and from those courses that they'll understand the importance of proper cattle handling.
Awesome. And Dylan, have you guys jumped into the camera?
No cameras. When I was younger, I worked on another dairy farm that had a camera directly in the milking parlor. It always made me uncomfortable as an employee on their farm, and decided that I didn't want my future employees to have to deal with the same thing.
Now, you did talk about a safety issue. I believe it was you that...
Yeah, so we did. We have considered cameras for surveillance, not like outside of the barn. We actually had a pickup truck and a livestock trailer stolen about a month and a half ago. And also we had employees' former partner show up at 10:30 one night where I got emergency phone calls and had to intervene, which is one of your favorite things to do at 10:30 at night. So from that perspective, I think maybe just from an employee safety standpoint and in the grounds outside it might benefit.
Okay, thank you. Cokes.
So same here. I don't have any cameras to monitor. Just also practical reason, I just simply don't have the time to go through all the footage. And I also don't want that culture on our farm. I have different ways to, if people are not following protocol, to deal with that. We do have a few cameras also for safety reasons. We've also had property stolen in the past, so there's a few cameras just to monitor who's going in and out of our farm, but that's about it.
And Kathy?
So we originally have cameras for our calving pen so that Paul can do his job 3 times a day, 7 days a week for the rest of his life. And they come in handy. When we had an incident happen, we went to what time frame it was because we talked to everybody on the farm. We got a sense of when it happened, and it actually saved our butts. So I'm quite a fan of cameras, and we have warnings up that you're being watched, and I don't have any issues with employees. If you're doing your job, nobody's going to bother you. If you're not doing your job, I will find you.
Thank you. Let that be a warning to all of you.
That's why I'm here, right?
Exactly. And then we're going to move on to this slide. So we're not going to talk about pay scales exactly. The PDO has a really good survey that they've just published anonymously across a lot of members on the pay grid. So we'll give you the handout for that if you're interested. From this group, I was more interested on tips and tricks, anything special they do that they feel really makes a difference with their staff. So Kathy, what would you say? We'll start with you and then we'll go that way.
I'm so sorry, I wasn't paying attention. What was the question?
How do you like to motivate your staff?
To motivate myself, and then I will just extend a helping hand. So I like clothes. I like to present who I work for because I am proud of what I do as a job, and I think I've worked myself from being a nobody to doing what I do. And I like to host a Christmas party because I try and keep up with the next guy, and I like to eat. So we often will do pizza party, we'll do a Christmas dinner. Sometimes if the air is getting real thick and everyone's having a meltdown, we're just gonna go for dinner and we're gonna have a team building, calm yourself down.
So no axe throwing.
We drink beer and or whiskey. I like beer and wine. Yes, we do team building exercises so that everyone is not always nitpicking on the negativity, that there might be a little bit positive something working together. Sometimes.
Okay, thank you. Cokes, how do you try to encourage your team?
So we also just try to focus on, really important to me is that they understand how important their job is. So when we train them, rather than initially it's just training on the task, but once they get a decent grasp of the task, we go into more depth with why are these tasks so important and that you do them in the way that we asked you to do. And I find generally that motivates them when they see things are going better because they are doing a good job. And we have assigned responsibility areas on our farm, so that goes a little bit two ways. But then when things go well, it's easy to compliment the person responsible for that area, and they have a sense of pride that everybody recognizes. When it goes sideways, it's also, a little bit different. But generally, I find that's the main thing, that when they feel a sense of pride in what they do, then the rest gets a lot easier. Now, that's usually not enough, as we all know. So we also have Christmas parties. We do a lot of food stuff. We have a cow that's slaughtered every year for the team. We have team gear. We have team events. We try to do a lot of little things, just spur of the moment. Like when you're covering bunk, we'll give the guys some beer and some burgers and just sit down together and relax. And I find those moments are the ones that they seem to appreciate the most. That when you know that they've worked really, really hard and things are tough, like on a hot summer day, when you show up and you spend your time getting them something really good, that's what they remember. So we try to do that.
I think I'm going to come and help you.
Sometimes hard to find the time to do it. And then I usually get a gentle reminder from my husband or some other people around us, hey, cooks, maybe it's time to buy some ice cream for your team. And I do that.
Dylan?
Yeah, so try to motivate our staff by including them in any discussion that we have with either our veterinarians, genetics consultants, advisors, in any way that any information our team is pretty well privy to. The things that, when we ask our people what are the things that actually motivate them, everyone likes food, everyone likes pizza parties, everyone likes that kind of stuff, but to them, the things that they care about the most is their jobs and that the jobs are interesting. So if we can make parts of their job, include them in interesting discussion, then I think that motivates them as much as anything. I once asked an employee at a formal review, I said, what's the hardest thing on the farm here? And she said, it's if a calf dies. And so I said, well, that's, you're exactly the perfect person who should be at this farm, because we're going to help you, we're going to give you the resources, we're going to make this interesting for you and try and turn that around the other way. We're going to arm you with everything we can to make sure that you don't have to see a calf die. We do Christmas party, pizza parties. We actually had an engagement party. 2 of our staff members ended up getting married.
To each other.
To each other. Yes, sorry. So we've had lots of good stuff like that, but ultimately it's just making the work interesting, trying to fixing the problems and the difficult things about the job, and just trying to keep your ear to the ground. Of course, like, we do need those reminders, like Coke said, is that maybe it's time to buy ice cream for everyone. Yeah, there's always those days.
Great, thank you. Josh?
It's always great being last in this.
Everybody said everything?
Pretty well. Christmas parties, barbecues. Anytime we do have a meeting, there's going to be food and drink there. Sometimes it's purchased. Sometimes we've found actually the staff really likes Marianne's homemade chili. So Clothing has been it's actually almost a bit of a surprise how well clothing goes over. And I think this was kind of echoed when we talked beforehand, but like a lot of the staff don't even really like wearing it to the barn. They want to wear it. Like yesterday, I brought a few of them with me, and they were all wearing it around here, and they really want to show it off. They're really proud of it. We usually only do it about once a year, and it's a bit of a big bill, but it's a good investment. We have a WhatsApp chat group, a couple of them actually on the farm, and we'll quite often use that for things that are going wrong or need improvement, whether it's pictures or just a little blurb. But then we also quite often will follow up or something else where things are going well, and let them know that things are going well. One thing that we do with it's a hardworking job. The timing isn't always great for bunk covering. So we started a couple years ago paying time and a half for bunk covering because quite often we have people coming in for it. And then we always, when we cover bunk, whether it's 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock in the morning, we go to the deck for beer and pizza or ice cream or whatever, things like that. So just showing appreciation.
That's awesome. So, we've talked about trying to create a team where your employees become more than just employees, they become a team. And then when you start to give them clothing and they're proud to represent you, it really does start to become a family. Is that a fair statement? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so now we're going to open up to the crowd for questions.
There won't be any questions. We explained ourselves very well.
I really like the concept of bunk covering, burgers, and beer. I think that's really good, the 3 Bs. Do we have time for questions? Any questions here?
I mean, you're more than welcome to help us come cover bunker. You seem very excited. More the hands, the merrier.
I excite very easily, but sometimes excitement at my age is very dangerous. We have a question here.
I have a question for Cokes. So you guys have a robot facility, I understand. And my question is, so you said you didn't really have a decrease in staff, or if you did, can you just kind of touch on that, if you don't mind?
Well, there were a few things happening at that time.
And
Yeah.
just if you love it, or if you sometimes wish maybe you hadn't gone robot.
Well, for me, for us, the way I managed, I would not go back. When we bought our second farm, it had a parlor, and I couldn't wait to put robots in, and we did that. What happened, the reason why our staff numbers didn't decrease, but they did change. So we went from many part-time employees to a few full-time. So what we were able to do is, instead of part-time positions, we can transition the team into dedicated full-time positions. And at the time, there were many things going on at the farm. But one of the things that we did change is that we created the dedicated responsibility areas on the farm, and we had a vision for growth. So we knew we needed more people down the road. So we decided to invest in more people rather than spreading the team too thin. And also the other reason is that just historically, I've learned through trial and error that if I run a very lean team, I'm always jumping in, because there's going to be sickness, there's going to be vacations, there's going to be unexplained absences, or unpredictable things. And I have my own family. I cannot be jumping in all the time on top of my own work. So just as a safety or as an insurance measure, I do always hire 1 or 2 people more to account for those absences. Yeah, so we're not lean in terms of employees, but that's a choice.
Everything happens with people, and sometimes the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. Other questions?
I'd follow up on Cokes' comment there. To have 2 extra or 3 extra night shift milkers in the parlor is always a good thing.
Well, and another change in labor and life. How many maternity leaves do each of you have on your staff right now? Those are 2.
I got myself and one other girl.
I only have men on my team, so it's a little bit different. Myself in the past.
We currently have 3 at the farm and 7 at the vet clinic.
We don't have any right now.
And that is why you were the top herd in Ontario, efficient reproduction. So we have time for...
We have been known as the pregnant farm before, both our cows and our people.
It happens. So we have time for other questions and utter questions too, if there's time here.
There's some newcomers that missed the whole show, and I talked smack the whole time about you, and you just decided to come when it's all done. Thanks so much, Tino.
Kathy, you did a really good job. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Everybody did a great job.
Anybody, any other questions?
Yep.
Not getting enough hours, that they're grumpy they're not getting enough hours versus like how many hours do you have your workers working, full-time, part-time people? How do you balance too many hours versus not enough hours?
Welcome to HR. That's the question we all share together. No one is ever fully happy.
Yeah, so having extra people, definitely in February, March, and April, we struggle with certain people. I can think about a text I had 2 weeks ago being like, I don't have enough hours, I need more hours. The farm gets really clean this time of the year. We save up a pile of maintenance jobs for this time of the year too. So if there's repairs that need to get done during harvest, maybe they don't get done until this time of the year. We get some crazy ideas sometimes, like we're going to take on some other kind of business too this time of the year. It's the age-old problem of one person too many in March and two people not enough in September.
It is sometimes a challenge because what you also deal with is when you have too many people, you have to be really tight on how you manage them. Because once you start pairing people up and they get used to doing the job together, when times are leaner, you get issues with that. So that's exactly where HR comes in. So the scheduling is really important. So it's similar to Dylan. We save up all our maintenance tasks until now, and I have a toilet roll full of stuff that needs to get fixed. It will never get done. But what I mean is nothing will ever get completed. So our team is never bored. But we have also very strict hours that, because I work with Guatemalan workers, the government also monitors how many hours they work. So I have a strict 8-hour per day rule that cannot be exceeded, and they know that. So you find other ways to deal with it.
You always have too many people, but not enough workers.
Good point.
Welcome to our struggle.
Other questions?
Other questions? Yes.
When you guys, or maybe this is for Coke, so I'm going to try to build it out for everybody. So let's say you have a Guatemalan who's maybe could be in a management position. Do you have problems in the house after the fact when they go home? And then for the rest of the people, like, let's say a clear leader, did you guys have troubles onboarding them if they're not family?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. You're working with people, right? So that is a challenge and I think that would be for anybody. If you were working on a job and you also live in the house with those people, you're undoubtedly going to run into some issues just because you spend so much time together. We have also instituted a rule that they go home every 6 months for a 1-month vacation, partially to relieve that, but also to give them that motivation to go back home. Because they all live in the same village, they kind of take care of each other. So we try to foster that family mentality. Obviously, there will always be people of different skill sets in your team. And I think you give everybody the same opportunity, but some people will rise to that opportunity and some won't. And people will recognize that. They'll see themselves, right? The important thing that we try to do is treat everybody fairly, but you cannot be equal all the time. So that's just something we try to keep with communication and different, you try to reward people differently. I don't have somebody in a management position at this point other than myself. So I'm the one that manages the farm. Like I said, I have 8 responsibility areas on the farm, 6 of them with backup positions. Some areas have higher responsibility than others. At some point, that's just the way it is, right? If you want that responsibility, show me that you can do it, and we can work with you on that. Because when he's on vacation, I need somebody to replace him. And that usually helps too. There's always opportunity to learn. Some people will learn and some won't.
I really appreciate the holistic approach all of our panelists have had, Chris, to grow the business, but to grow the laborers too. And I really like the commitment to the health and well-being of your employees. Congratulations, everyone. Other questions? Yep.
So say you're trying to improve the performance of some of your employees. What's the best way to motivate that employee to a change?
That would be daily beatings until morale improves. No, don't answer that. How do you motivate your employees was the question.
Ask them, what motivates you? Just.
I would think if there's something that needs to be improved, you need to explain why it needs to be improved. So through discussion, I guess.
Well, what's the problem firsthand? And you have to communicate. Communication is key. If there's something going on, I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to be telling my bosses, and we're sitting down, regardless whether they want to or not. And we're talking about what can we do? How can we fix this? What needs to change? What part of the job needs to change? Communication.
Communication is so important. A farmer who was having marriage issues, and at the counselor, the wife said, my husband never tells me that he loves me. And the farmer said, well, I told you that once 35 years ago. If it ever changes, I'll let you know. Communication is key.
Just out of curiosity, how many people in the crowd use offshore workers? Okay. Three farms? Okay.
What we found, like for me, that was a big lesson in how to work with them because, well, there's cultural differences, but also I learned what I may seem, what may be a perk in my opinion or something that I would want doesn't necessarily apply to my team. And so historically, I would give them or do something for them that I would have wanted in that position. And I learned that that doesn't always work. So for instance, with our guys, what I found that really motivated them and that surprised me is the housing. So we gave them all individual rooms, and I didn't think too much. Well, I thought guys in a house, how much do they care about decoration, right? But we gave them a big Christmas tree, a whole bunch of Christmas decorations, and I put paintings and tried to make it look nice. And then suddenly they were telling me that they were, when they went home, they were trying to copy that at home. So that really mattered to them. And I didn't realize, right? Until I just kind of by mistake, I put this big Christmas tree in the house, and now that Christmas tree is there year round because they don't want to take it down. So, but it's stuff too, like a barbecue.
It an artificial or a
luckily an artificial one, but it has so many decorations because I went on Kijiji, I got a whole bunch of decorations, and all of them are in the tree.
It's become the Charlie Brown tree.
Yes. But it's things like that, and the meat. They're big meat guys, and when we raise, and I'm not a big meat eater, but that animal gets babied on our farm, and when it's slaughtered, it's a party. I guess it comes down to what Dylan said. You have to ask, and you have to communicate. It's not always what you think would apply to yourself.
And meetings are great for that. Sorry. Meetings are great because then everyone has a chance to be on the same level, same page, and just say what you have to say. Unless they're shy or nervous, then you're going to hear about it after.
I was just going to ask Cokes, who gets the tongue from the cow after it's slaughtered? Because
you know what? I forgot about that. The guy that slaughtered the cow assumed nobody wanted it, but also a thing, if I had saved, so next time I will, the tongue and the head, that's a big thing. That's a delicacy. I should have saved it. So next time we're saving that.
So, Cokes, you had mentioned that you compensate people in different ways. If you've touched on this, just ignore my question. But if you have hourly workers and you have a worker that's clearly worth 1.5 times, how do you do that? How do you compensate them without creating jealousy amongst your staff? Because they will share their hourly rate.
Yes, we know that because they live together and they're brothers. At some point also, we have to respect that they're adults and this is real life. If you do your job really well and it shows and the farm does better because of what you do, I will pay you more than somebody who does not. But I think it also works as a motivation because if I keep paying them the same, even though they do a better job, at some point they're going to lose their motivation in that. So historically, what has happened in that case is that either other people rise to that level or they weed themselves out. And so we do see a natural shift in that. And I'm lucky that I have a pretty good team now, but I mean, it took a long time to get there. You do go through trial and error. You do go through shifts. Yeah.
Josh, would you like to answer your father? You're welcome. And any questions can be directed to my boss, who joined also late. You're also welcome. I won't let you forget it, Tino. You should have showed up on time. I always tell you all the time, I have your schedule in my book. When to show up, who's coming. That's my job, and I do it well.
Do you have the philosophy if you're 5 minutes early, you're already late?
Yes.
Okay.
You're welcome.
We have other questions or other questions?
Right at the front here, Tim.
Right in the front. All right. You're in the bonus round. You've had 2 questions.
Sorry. So I have one more question for the people who don't have foreign help. How do you motivate Canadians to work on your farm when it's really difficult to pay a competitive wage compared to other industries that are much easier to work in?
You got to find the people who like animals. You got to find the people who like the job. I'm sure from the vet tech perspective, when you started, you didn't do it for the wage. You did it because you like the animals.
That's correct. I don't give a hoot about how much you're going to pay me. And I think that's maybe why I'm hoping. That's why I'm appreciated. However, there is so many factors around if you're living close to a city, if you're living close to some big factory. We're losing a lot of people all the time. So I'm quite interested to have a separate discussion with Cox after the fact. But I can't compete with $32 an hour. I can't compete with benefits. I can't compete with anything of the sort. So it's almost impossible to find another me, and that's why I have 4 children, and that's why we're doing what we're doing to try and get what we have to replenish itself. But it's next to impossible. Unless you like animals, you like what you're doing, you like to pitch shit, and you like to roll in it, I can't compete with anybody.
One of the things that we talked about as well is, so there's a saying that says you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. So if you as a dairy farmer hang around with people who only work at Toyota and tell you what their shift length is and how much they make an hour, it can be tough for you to go to the barn if your barn's not perfect and you're working long hours. It's the same, I think, with staff. Cox, you had mentioned being near 2 Toyota plants and how that can be difficult to, just even from a prestige standpoint.
Yeah, we tried and failed all kinds of approaches for a good, I think, 8 years, and it didn't work. I tried everything. I think I tried everything. I clearly didn't, because that's why we shifted. But I understand the struggle, so we made the change for that reason. And I feel, it worked out really well for us. Your job changes. My job is more paperwork focused, but in return, I have a guaranteed team that's there and does their job really well. That's what I don't have to worry about. But it depends on what is most important to you, right? I can also understand why other people don't want to go this direction, because from my side, my job changed. I had to learn Spanish. I have a completely different way of running the farm, and some people may not want to do it that way.
That was a good comment, that the job always changes, but there's always time to do what we put first. Another question over here. We're going into the bonus round for questions today. This is really good. I'm probably going to get a prize for the most questions asked during a session today. If there was a prize, I'd be getting one.
I came late, so forgive me if you've touched on this already. I have an LMIA as well. I've seen your team. This is directed to Cox. How do you deal with the rotation of foreign workers? I assume you're on a 2-year program. How do you get them to want to come back? The follow-up to that is, if they want to come to Canada, do your team members want to come to Canada permanently? Do they want to apply for a PR? And how do you deal with that?
I think this is a very loaded question, so I can go into more depth with you if you want afterwards. But just give a quick answer to it, yes, the LMIA is 2 years for the not the seasonal worker program, right? The low skill program. Don't ask me why it's 2 years. I find that very frustrating. And whenever at the end of the 2 years, they have to go back before you can reapply. Now, I am lucky that my team has indicated that they want to come back on the long run. But the reality is, and I think anybody in that position, if you're away from your family for 2 years, how long can you do that, right? Can you do it for 10 years? Can you do it for 15? You're going to miss a whole bunch. So I sat down with the guys and I said, okay, look, you guys have all indicated you want to come back, and I'm really happy about that. But realistically, at some point, your wives and your children are going to pull. And then they won't have too much to say anymore. And that will be a problem for us. It will be a problem for them. How can we resolve this? And because for them, the financial situation, how it is back home, the money is the big drive. They're really doing this for their children. They're doing this to get housing, medical care, and education for their children. That's why. They're not doing it for themselves. They know that they're sacrificing a bunch. What they said to me is, if I can go home every 6 months, go home for about a month or so, and do this in the long run, that will work for me. They're ready. Then they have enough money to take care of their families, and they see their families enough that their wives and children are happy. So that's what we've done. So regardless of the 2 years, they go home roughly every 6 months. So that's also why I have extra people, because when you send them home at the end of the contract, you're not always guaranteed to have them back within a month or two, depending on how long the paperwork takes. So you have to have a lot of safety buffers built in. So I'm actually moving to 9 workers now, where I'll have always somebody, at least 2 people back in Guatemala, 1 at the end of their contract, 1 on vacation, and they keep rotating like that. So I do have an endless rotation of paperwork, but again, it comes down to I have a solid team on the ground here. I don't have to worry about the farm running well. Yeah.
Really good. It's really, when you look at your foreign workers, they're trying to improve a betterment of life for their family, just much as we make every attempt to grow the replacement animals that we have in the same way. Yeah. I like to often say that the Bible says it's a wise man who plans for his children's children, and these people are doing that, and all of you are doing that too. Any other questions? Going once. The staff will be here for a few minutes if you want to ask private questions. But if not, I'll ask Greta Svering, who is in charge of the dairy classroom, to come forward. I'd like to thank Cokes and Kathy and Dylan and Josh for a very informative presentation here this afternoon. And thank you, Dr. Chris, for leading us here. We have these beautiful CDX mementos for each and every one of you. So please give them a round of applause to show your appreciation. This has been a really fun group, Chris. Did you reject a lot of people to get this Final Four? Or?
We may have had to twisted a few arms that are up here to get them up here. So, but and we had a few other people.
Just be honest. You scraped the bottom of the barrel.
So is it like
I
final?
Say that.
Like March Madness Final Four? Oh, thank you. And they have lovely gift bags from
Pedro,
Sugarcane Trouw Nutrition.
This on Tuesday also. You better bring me something good too, and coffee and muffins. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody.
So yes, there might have been some bribery.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Employee compensation is really, really good. The carrot before the stick. It's awesome. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us in the dairy classroom today. Remember to see the rest of CDX today, and we'll look forward to seeing you here again next year. Thank you very much.